Live from London, this is BBC News. The US warns of more airstrikes against Islamic State as targets in Nigeria. President Zelensky says he'll meet with President Trump on Sunday at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Israeli police say 2 people have been killed in a stabbing and a car ramming attack in northern Israel. And the judge in the US has temporarily blocked the detention of a British social media campaigner who took legal action against the US government after removing his visa. We'll be speaking to the campaigner Imran Ahmed live. And Boxing Day sales in the UK are in full swing. Shoppers could be spending more than £3.5 billion today. Hello, I'm Lucy Hawkins. The US says it's launched airstrikes against militants linked to the Islamic State group in Nigeria. Nigeria's foreign minister telling the BBC the strikes had been planned for quite some time. Straight to Washington, we can join our chief North America correspondent, Gary O'Donoghue, who is there for us. What's the White House saying, Gary?
Well, they haven't said much since last night. We certainly haven't heard any or seen any particular evidence about the numbers of people who were killed. They claim multiple people were killed. Now, Donald Trump has been threatening to do this for some time, warning Nigeria about what he describes as a slaughter of Christians in the country. Others on the right here have used even words like genocide. Now, that's something that the Nigerian government rejects. They say, yes, there are terrorist groups operating, as we know, in the north of the country, and they say they attack all Nigerians, including Muslims as well. But earlier in the year, there's some conservative groups in this country that had some success in persuading the president to designate Nigeria as something they call a country of particular concern, which does allow him to introduce things like sanctions, and indeed he's threatened to withhold aid. And they are threatening potentially further strikes on Nigeria. So this is something that does play well, particularly with the evangelical right in this country, who are concerned about Christians and the way they're treated around the world, as you can imagine. But there are risks too, because there are some on the right that believe Donald Trump when he said he wouldn't get further involved in sort of foreign entanglements. And this is clearly involvement. All this, of course, a year out of the midterm elections, where Donald Trump, as the incumbent, controlling also both houses of Congress, will face a significant challenge at the polls.
Gary, thank you. Well, let's look further at what's happened today in Nigeria. Here's Joe Inwood.
On Christmas Day, a US operation they said was to protect the Christians of Nigeria. This footage released by the Pentagon. And this said to be the aftermath in northwest Sokoto State. Reports are still emerging, but the White House has claimed there were multiple fatalities amongst people they called terrorist scum. President Trump suggested the timings of the strike was no coincidence. He posted on social media, "Our country will not allow radical Islamic terrorism to prosper. May God bless our military, and Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues." The Nigerian government has long been fighting various jihadist groups in the north of the country, including Boko Haram and Islamic State splinter cells. There have been growing calls in US right-wing circles for intervention in what some have called a genocide against Christians. But the Nigerian government has been keen to point out that the victims of attacks have been from all backgrounds.
It has nothing to do with a particular religion. It is, as far as we're concerned, targeting terrorists that have been attacking Nigerians, period. So it has nothing to do with one religion or another.
On Christmas Eve, a suspected suicide bomber attacked a mosque in Nigeria's northeastern Borno state, killing at least 5 people and wounding dozens. No one here would doubt that there is a real problem with violence in the north of Nigeria. It is the suggestion that Christians are being particularly targeted that is questioned.
For Nigerians, this is a real security situation that is killing Nigerian Muslims and Christians and everyone, and any effort that can help towards saving lives in Nigeria will be welcomed by Nigerians. Unfortunately, President Trump's narrative is divisive and is creating further tensions on the ground in Nigeria.
Donald Trump came to power promising a less interventionist foreign policy. but has been increasingly keen to use American firepower to achieve his political and ideological goals. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Ukraine's President Zelensky says he'll meet with President Trump in Florida this weekend to discuss progress on a peace deal. Mr. Zelensky says a 20-point peace plan is now 90% ready. The Kremlin has confirmed it's held talks with the US about American peace proposals as well. Straight to Kyiv, let's join our correspondent there, Samira Hussein. Samira, what can we read into the fact that President Zelensky and President Trump are actually meeting in person on Sunday?
It's clear that there is quite a momentum that has been building over the last few days. It was only on Wednesday that we received the outline of this 20-point peace plan. Fast forward to Christmas Day, and President Zelensky spent an hour on the phone with Steve Witkoff and with Jared Kushner. And now we're hearing about this meeting with President Trump and President Zelensky in Florida on Sunday. So it's clear there's a lot of movement. In speaking with reporters earlier, President Zelensky said that in terms of issues that are left to discuss, it's some of the most difficult ones. One, of course, are the security guarantees, but the other is territorial concessions. As we know from what we've heard from Russia in the past, there's a real reluctance to give up any part of the Donbass, meaning that he wants that entire region. But of course, territorial concessions like that have always been a difficult sell for President Zelensky, particularly to the people here in Ukraine.
And from the Russian side of things, because of course they need to be party to all of this as well, what have we heard from Moscow?
Right. The Kremlin has reported that President Putin has ordered his aide to speak with his American counterparts, which has happened. And we know that they're saying that they are committed to continuing the dialogue. President Zelensky did address the issue of the Russians, whether or not he's heard any kind of reaction to this 20-point plan. He said there is no interaction between the Ukrainians and the Russians, that the United States is very much the interlocutor. And the way that it's working now is that Russia speaks to the Americans speak to the Ukrainians, and that is sort of the triangle that works there.
And Samira, what are the security guarantees that Ukraine is after and will be looking for from the Americans?
They're going to be looking for something similar to what you would find in NATO's Article 5. So if Russia were to, after a ceasefire, if Russia were to invade into Ukraine again, they would expect to see some support. That would be air support, on-the-ground support, financial support as well, to stave off any kind of Russian incursion back into Ukraine. Now, the question, of course, is who is going to be contributing troops and what exactly that would look like. And those are some of the issues that still need to be ironed out in detail.
Samira, thanks so much. Police in Israel say 2 people have been killed in a stabbing and car ramming attack in the north of the country. Officials saying the attacker hit a man with a car before fatally stabbing a 19-year-old woman in the town of Bet Shean. A suspect has been taken to hospital. Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz has called it a terror attack and says it was carried out by a Palestinian. Our correspondent Shaima Khalil gave me the latest from Jerusalem.
Well, we understand that 2 people were killed and 2 others were injured in a series of attacks of ramming and stabbing. We know from the ambulance services they confirmed the death of a 60-year-old man who was run over and killed in that attack and has now been named as Shamsun Mordechai. The 19-year-old woman was stabbed by the assailant near a bus stop. She's been named as Aviv Maor. We know that the assailant has been engaged in gunfire from the officials and taken to hospital as the investigation continues into what the officials describe as an apparent terror attack. Both police and IDF personnel are still on the scene in Bet Shean, which is northeast of the occupied West Bank, for further assessment and to secure the premises. We also heard from the Israeli Defense Minister, Israel Katz, who said he'd instructed the IDF to respond forcefully to this attack, and he said that an IDF operation is being prepared in the Kabatia area where they believe the assailant is from. We also heard from Hamas, they've issued a statement commenting on the attack, saying that this was a result of an accumulated sense of anger among people from what they described as the crimes of the occupation in Jerusalem, the West Bank and Gaza. They called on the international community to break the silence of the Palestinians.
And Shaima, what is being said about this footage that is all over social media at the moment of an Israeli reservist who rammed his vehicle into a Palestinian man in the occupied West Bank?
That's right. That video was from Christmas Day, and it circulated quite widely overnight. We've been getting it all through the hours of the night. And we've been getting more details from the IDF about the nature of this settler attack. What you see in the video is a settler in the area of Deir Jarir. It's on the west entrance of Ramallah, and he's riding a quad bike, and he runs over a Palestinian man as he's praying. He's in the kneeling position of his prayer, and then you see the Palestinian man under the bike, squeezed under the bike, and then he struggles to pull himself out. He walks, there is a bit of an altercation, and then he walks away. What the IDF have said is that this man is an IDF reservist, firing his weapon in civilian clothes before running over that man. They said that that his services were suspended, that his weapon has been confiscated, and that he's been given a 5-day house arrest.
At least 8 people have been killed, around 20 others injured in an explosion during Friday prayers inside a mosque in the northern Syrian province of Homs. The attack happening in the Alawite Wadi al-Dadab neighborhood. State media said initial investigations indicated the blast was caused by explosive devices that were planted inside the mosque. The extremist Sunni group Saraya Ansar al-Sunnah said it carried out the attack in collaboration with another group which it did not name. Saad Shahata from BBC Arabic has been following developments from our newsroom.
What happened, according to the Minister of Health, 8 people were killed, 18 people were injured so far. The injured people were transferred to the hospitals, some of them in critical conditions. So it might be more people, the casualties may rise. And according to the security sources, talked to the SANA, which is the Syrian state agency, saying that it's an explosive devices were planted in the mosque. And it was during the Friday prayers, so there's many people there, so the casualties are this big number. The number might rise. And mainly it's an Alawite. It's called the Ali ibn Abi Talib Mosque in Homs in central Syria.
President al-Shara talks often about the importance of unification, of the country coming together in order to build what he calls a strong Syria. So when you see something like this, what does it say about how difficult that is going to be in the future stability of the country?
Many challenges to achieve stability in Syria in the future after 1 year from after the toppling Bashar al-Assad. There were joy in Syria for al-Assad to go, but at the same time there is concerns about al-Shara to lead the country. There is some incident happened before, the coastal incident in March, and after that there is investigation by Syrian UN committee, and they found out there is part of the interim government forces were perpetrated, like acts of violence against the Alawite in the coastal area. In addition to that, the agreement between al-Shara government and Syrian Democratic Forces is not implemented yet. That where the forces of the Syrian Democratic Forces will be part of the National Army or the Minister of Defense is not happening so far. The Druze also are not happy with the Shara. So there is many division inside Syria. There is support for him from Mr. Trump, from other leaders, but the challenge inside are immense. And what happened today highlights the problem and the challenges ahead of Mr. Shara to make authority happen and a grip on the Syrian in the future.
Shata there from BBC Arabic. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Welcome back. A judge in the US has temporarily blocked the detention of a British social media campaigner who took legal action against the US government after removing his visa. Imran Ahmed is chief executive of the Centre for Countering Digital Hate. He was among 5 people denied visas to the US after the Trump administration accused them of seeking to coerce American tech platforms into suppressing free speech. The White House says Mr. Ahmed is a radical activist. Well, let's speak to the man himself, Imran Ahmed, CEO of the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, who joins me now. Imran, good to see you. A difficult couple of days over the Christmas period for you and your family. How have you been doing?
Well, it's all been rather confusing, to be honest. The work that we do at the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, we've worked with administrations, both Republican and Democrat, and this does seem to be, well, perhaps even an error goaded on by some of the tech companies, the social media platforms, the AI platforms that the Centre for Countering Digital Hate studies and holds accountable.
But Imran, if it's not an error, if it is, you know, you've been singled out for some reason, what do you think that reason is?
Well, I think that there has been undue pressure put on by the social media and AI platforms that, of course, have such influence in Washington, and we know how big money works with these big corporations. And I think the reason that they are so angry at the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, and don't forget, we were sued by Elon Musk a couple of years ago, unsuccessfully. A court found that he was trying to impinge on our First Amendment rights to free speech by using lawfare to try and silence our accountability work, our studies, our research into their platforms. And I think this is actually another example of these companies trying to evade accountability, this time in the most ridiculous way possible.
So when you looked into these platforms, what did your research show? What particular allegations were you making?
We've done so many studies. I'll give you a couple of examples. One, a study into TikTok, which showed that if you open an account as a 13-year-old girl, within 2.6 minutes in that study, it was showing you self-harm content. Within 8 minutes, it was showing you eating disorder content every 39 seconds on average in the first half hour on that platform. And our most recent study, Fake Friend, which found that ChatGPT, when we opened accounts, again, as 13-year-old girls, within 2 minutes, it was willing to advise us on how to cut ourselves safely. Within 40 minutes, it was telling us what household drugs we could take for an overdose within 65 minutes. And this is unbelievable. It was literally drafting suicide notes for the researchers' parents and loved ones. So this is the kind of work that has enormous impact, of course. It really moves people to want to have more transparency and accountability for these companies. And look, no one likes accountability. I don't like it when I'm caught not putting out the trash cans by my wife. And I think in this instance, what we're seeing is these platforms, unlike us who, you know, grudgingly admit that we messed up, they're actually suing and calling their friends in Washington.
So what do you say to these specific comments from the State Department of you and the 4 others that say you are leading an organised effort to coerce American platforms to censor, demonise and suppress American viewpoints they oppose? And then, I guess that other criticism as well, it's just coming from some conservatives in the US that say it's just you trying to censor right of centre opinions.
Well, we've worked with right of centre politicians throughout our existence. I mean, when I first moved to America in 2020, I worked with the Trump administration. I appeared on stage with Mike Pompeo, the then Secretary of State, with Benjamin Netanyahu and Michael Gove, the former minister in the British Parliament, to talk about the pernicious way in which anti-Semitism is turbocharged on these platforms, how the lies that underpin it. So it does seem to me that we actually share objectives, the UK, the US, and the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, in dealing with these pernicious problems, whether it's harms to children or it's the unchecked spread of hate against Jewish people or others. So I'm still waiting to see something from the government. I haven't received anything, and when I do, I'll be able to tell you what I think about it.
So you haven't had your green card revoked? There's been no action like that?
Well, no. You can't revoke someone's green card without taking them to court. And before that would happen, I assumed that I would receive notification that I'm due in court, and we've received no such notification.
And we should be clear that your wife and your daughter are US citizens, aren't they?
Well, my wife is an Oklahoman, so yeah, she's American.
Yeah, okay. Are you worried, oh, I'm sure you are, about where this could go from here, that it's you and 4 others, but, you know, with this kind of action, what could be next? Not just for you, but in general.
No, look, I've always known that when you take on the world's biggest corporations, especially ones that are so indifferent to the harm that they cause, that are almost sociopathic in their greed, that there are ramifications, that they will always push back very hard. As I said, we've been sued before. Elon Musk sued us for $10 million, and he lost in a court in California. We've been, people have called us all sorts of names, but we are very clear. What we do is in the public interest, and that's why in the last 24 hours, publicly, and I've also privately had so many words from parents groups, from Jewish groups, from others who've just come to our assistance, come out to say how important it is that our work continues.
And what happens now then? Your work continues, but legally, what's the next step in the process?
Well, we've received a temporary restraining order from a court in New York, which is reflective of the fact that, A, this is important and urgent, and second, that they think that our rights may be being denied, our First Amendment rights. And of course, all the work that we do, we're not a government organization, we're a part of the public. And so we have First Amendment rights to express our opinions, to communicate our research. And we expect to see further hearings in that particular restraining order on Monday, I think.
Imran Ahmed, very good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us on BBC News.
Thank you.
And just very quickly as well, to bring you more that we got from the US State Department and the White House when we approached them for comment, and the AFP news agency as well. They said that the Supreme Court and Congress have repeatedly made clear the US is under no obligation to allow foreign aliens to come to our country or to reside here. The UN has said that the Sunday election that took place, the presidential election in Guinea, has been marked by intimidation and repression, urging the authorities to ensure there was no fear or repression at the vote. In a statement, the UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk said the civic and political space had been severely restricted, marked by intimidation of opposition actors, enforced disappearances, which possibly are politically motivated, and constraints on media freedom. The military leader, General Mamadi Doumbouya, is running for president despite his initial promise to return power to civilians when he took power in 2021. Guinea's opposition calling for a boycott of the vote, which is due to be held in phases that start from Sunday. The former Prime Minister of Malaysia, Najib Razak, has been sentenced to 15 years in prison for abuse of power and money laundering. The charges stemmed from the multi-billion-dollar corruption scandal at the state fund 1MDB. The court dismissing his plea that the charges against him were a politically motivated witch hunt. Mr. Najib was already in jail after being convicted on other charges related to the development fund. Well, with more on that, here's our news correspondent, Jonathan Josephs.
This has all been happening at the High Court in Putrajaya, and what we've had is these guilty verdicts against the former Prime Minister Najib Razak, 4 counts of abuse of power and 21 counts of money laundering. These are specifically linked to around $560 million of money that the prosecutor said was illegally transferred. And this is all part of the billions of dollars that have been involved in the 1MDB scandal. 1MDB is this sovereign wealth fund that was designed by Mr. Najib to try and transform Malaysia's economy. Now, he's always denied any wrongdoing, and as he said, he thinks these charges are politically motivated. But that's a point that was addressed specifically by the judge, who said the cold, hard and incontrovertible evidence against him pointed towards the accused having abused his own powerful position in 1MDB, coupled with the extensive powers conferred upon him. Mr. Najib remains an influential figure in his political party in Malaysia, and that's a party that's involved in a coalition government at the moment. So there is the potential for some political fallout for all this, and Mr. Najib has been addressing that since this verdict was handed down, saying that he will continue to pursue his rights through legitimate channels with dignity and patience, and urging Malaysians not to be influenced or provoked in any way that could disrupt public harmony. It just goes to show how much Malaysians are really invested in this case and trying to find out what happened with all this money.
Researchers have rediscovered an elusive wild cat in Thailand, where it was long feared to be extinct. Flat-headed cats are among the world's rarest and most threatened wild felines, with an estimated 2,500 thought to be living in the wild. The last recorded sighting in Thailand was 3 decades ago. Well, over the last 2 years, researchers have been monitoring camera traps in the south of the country. They've had some success, with 29 detections during the survey. Although it's not clear how many cats those detections represent, researchers have described the rediscovery as exciting and a starting point for future conservation efforts. Time to show you the boats that have set off, the yachts, 120 of them, for the annual Sydney to Hobart race. Tough conditions already taking their toll on day one. The crews have been battling swells of up to 4 metres high. It's forced 3 boats to retire early and another has failed to start. Many sailors, though, quite a moving moment, scattered rose petals on the water as a tribute to those who died in the mass shooting that targeted the Jewish community at Bondi Beach. Stay with us here on BBC News. This is BBC News, the headlines. The US warns of more airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Nigeria. President Zelensky says he will meet President Trump on Sunday at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Police in Devon call off a search for 2 swimmers who went missing at sea on Christmas Day. Boxing Day sales in the UK are in full swing. Shoppers could be spending more than £3.5 billion today. Hello, I'm Lucy Hockings. Good to have you with us. More news coming up. First, though, time to look at some Boxing Day sport for you. We can join Hugh, who is over at our sports centre. Hugh, cricket first. What an unbelievably crazy opening day of the 4th Ashes Test. Was it? I want to say 20 wickets that fell on the first day?
Yeah, that's right. Crazy, chaotic, Lucy. The series might be lost already, but England are finding new ways to make history in the Ashes. They were bowled out for just 110 as those 20 wickets fell on day 1 of the Boxing Day Test at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. We're going to show you just some of them now. To show you them all would take too long. Australia batted first on a pitch that's been called unfair by one pundit. They didn't do much better. All out for 152, with Josh Tongue taking 5 wickets for England. The Aussies' top scorer was a bowler. Michael Neser then went on to take 4 in his normal job. The 20 total of fall is the most in any one day of an Ashes Test since 1909 and continues a very bowler-friendly series. Remember, 19 fell on the first day in Perth. Now, just like then, the door was open for England, but they slammed it shut in their own faces. Only 3 batters in double figures for them. They were skittled out within a session after tea. At one point, 8 for 3 and 16 for 4. It might have been much worse if not for Harry Brooks' ultra-aggressive innings of 41. That's the highest score of either team on the day. All very entertaining for an MCG record crowd for a cricket match. Nearly 95,000 were there. They watched the home side survive just the 1 over at the end for a lead of 46 runs.
That is just extraordinary. And that person who...
for 150 odd. I thought we did an amazing job as a bowling unit. And obviously they've bowled well as well. It's obviously a pitch which is doing quite a bit. But yeah, we've got to come back tomorrow and do the same again what we did the first innings. It's how we play our cricket. I thought we play a very positive branded cricket.
That match, the first of the series, lasted just 2 days, you'll remember, Lucy. That was the shortest in more than a century between England and Australia. There might be a second to last that short in just 5 weeks.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you'd got tickets for the 5th day. You'd be doing very well right now, Hugh. But Boxing Day always a big day for horse racing, and for one man in particular, it's been particularly special today.
That's right, Lucy. Yes, the King George VI Chase, the big race traditionally run on Boxing Day, was won by a celebrity owner, Harry Redknapp. But the former football manager had an anxious wait to have that result confirmed. That's because the finish was incredibly close. Redknapp's horse, the Jukebox Man, ridden by Ben Jones, went into the final fence of the 3-mile race behind 2 other horses, but the 7-to-1 shot snuck between them to claim the more than £142,000 prize for its owner. That's the best result the Redknapp, who is now 78 and his trainer, have had. He said afterwards it's a dream, and to have his horse this good is unbelievable. And bear in mind, Lucy, that Harry Redknapp has had a lot of winners on Boxing Day in the past, but given the tradition that football has rather eschewed this year because it's fallen on the wrong day of the year, he's celebrating even still.
Great to see you, Hugh. Thanks so much. I know you'll have more sports throughout the day. Thank you. Let's take you back to our top story this hour. The US launching strikes on what it says are militants linked to the Islamic State group in Nigeria. Nigeria's foreign minister telling the BBC the strikes had been planned for quite some time and that the 2 governments had worked together on sharing intelligence and coordinating the strikes. There's been a mixed reaction inside Nigeria.
If American mission in Nigeria is to take away the terrorists, it's a very good thing. Because nobody in Nigeria, even the president says any terrorists anywhere they are, it should be taken away. If America is helping Nigeria to do that, it's a welcome development. We in Nigeria should appreciate America for doing that for us.
The current issue in Nigeria is not a religious crisis. It is a problem of personal kidnapping and bandits, other groups trying to destroy the country itself. So I feel the government, the military we have, can solve this issue. So we don't need the help of the United States. Nigeria government is good and can handle this.
Well, Barry Marston is a jihadist media analyst with BBC Monitoring, and he told me America is striking this region of northwest Nigeria in particular, or why they are.
Well, you're absolutely right in asking about the location, because that really came as a surprise to everybody. The vast majority of Islamic State attacks in Nigeria occur in totally the opposite side of the country, about 1,000 kilometers away, mostly around Borno State. It's one of the most active branches of the Islamic State worldwide. It claimed well over 300 attacks, over 1,000 claimed casualties during 2025, the vast majority of whom were from the military. This is a group that does largely target the military, and the number of Christians targeted has been a very, very small subset of this. But yeah, the actual target of this attack occurred in Sokoto State, where Islamic State has never claimed to have a presence. It's never claimed to have staged any attacks there. Our understanding is that the group targeted was a little-known entity called the Lakurawa Group, which there has been unconfirmed reporting that it may at some point have declared loyalty to the Islamic State. But certainly it has not been claiming attacks on behalf of Islamic State to date.
But some of these jihadi groups that are operating there are affiliated, Barry?
Well, if you look at northwestern Nigeria, it's a fascinating area to look at, because there are so many of these groups with very different affiliations. In fact, Al-Qaeda's Sahel branch claimed its first ever attack in Nigeria just a month ago. It's been active in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, gradually moving eastwards closer to Nigeria's borders. But there are a number of other smaller entities within that area. Lakurawa Group is just one of those, and often we see these jihadist groups fighting each other very bitterly, with very bloody conflict in northern Burkina Faso just in recent months. Likewise in the Lake Chad region, where Boko Haram and the Islamic State have engaged in very fierce fighting with each other.
So Barry, in the region at the moment, is there a sense of surprise that President Trump has got involved in this right now?
Well, everybody was very aware of President Trump's statements at the end of October, threatening to take some sort of action in protection of Nigeria's Christians. As I mentioned, when you're talking about the jihadist threat, Christians are a very tiny subset of the targets of jihadists across the country. My job actually is to monitor jihadist channels and on social media. And one of those pro-IS channels had actually been following the movement of American reconnaissance planes over Nigeria. Very interestingly for me, they had actually been, Sokoto State had been one of the areas that was particularly being targeted by US planes. So it didn't totally seem to come out the blue, even though it may have been quite a surprising part of the country to have targeted when the US says it's targeting Islamic State.
And in terms of what you've been monitoring, Barry, in reaction to this as well, is there the potential that, given the deep fault lines that there are in the country already, that this kind of action could actually exacerbate them?
Well, I think on one side, the Nigerian government is very pleased to get increased US support against the challenges of militancy and jihadism, because the threat is very real. It's not just from jihadists. Northwestern Nigeria is particularly plagued by criminal bandit groups, which are far more active, far larger, far more damaging to civilians than the jihadists in that part of the country. Most of the major kidnappings that you'll have heard about in recent months and years have been perpetrated by these bandit groups. So instability is very much a threat that the Nigerian government, I think, appreciates getting international support in grappling with.
In southwest England, police say they've called off the search for two men in their 60s and 40s who went missing after getting into difficulty off the coast of Devon yesterday. Emergency services called to Budleigh-Salterton following reports of people in the water, as Rebecca Rix now reports.
Braving the December seas, but what began as a joyful Christmas tradition in Budleigh-Salterton would end with a massive emergency search operation for two missing men. People in Budleigh have told us of their shock and heartache at the events that unfolded here on the beach yesterday. The police say the two men, one in their 40s and one in their 60s, remain missing after entering the sea with other people. Several other swimmers needed help from the emergency services, with a number attending hospital as a precaution.
It was much worse conditions than normal, and some of the worst conditions I've ever tried to swim in. With hindsight, it was clearly a mistake to try and get in.
Mike says he was saved by 2 spectators.
2 local guys, who I need to try and find and thank, basically waded in their clothes and tried to get me out. One got knocked over and they aborted the first time. Another wave hit me. I managed to hold on. And then the second time they came in, I was unable to stand at this time, and they took an arm each and dragged me to save her. And as quick as it had started, it was over. I was on the beach and I was safe.
The RNLI has today described working in punishing conditions during yesterday's search. It says its thoughts are with the families of those affected. Rebecca Ricks, BBC News.
3 people are missing after a fire at a house near Stroud in Gloucestershire. Emergency services were called to a property on Brinscombe Hill in the early hours of the morning. 1 person managed to escape the house and was taken to hospital. Police say a search is underway for 3 people believed to have been inside the property and who remain unaccounted for. Gloucestershire police say an investigation has begun to establish the cause of the fire. At least 3 people have died in Southern California. It follows a powerful storm which left 100,000 people without power. Heavy rain, which is expected to continue today, has triggered floods and mudslides right across the region. Our correspondent John Donnison has more.
Much of Southern California is already underwater, and months' worth of rain are expected to fall in the coming days. Rivers have been turned into raging torrents. And for local residents, it's been a grim Christmas, with helicopters having to be used to winch some to safety.
We saw there were a bunch of emergency lights down at the end of the road, and we walked as far as we could without getting swept up in the water, and saw that there were people, that my neighbors that were on top of their roof, 3 people on top of the roof, just sitting there and waiting. So we haven't had any storms like this one where, I've seen houses being damaged, where we've had damage on our property. This is definitely the worst of it, including being stuck at a house and having completely impassable roads. We weren't expecting to spend Christmas stuck at the house with limited utilities. But the flip side of that is I can be thankful to spend time with my family.
Those travelling by road to be with family found themselves stuck.
Thought we were able to get through it. We did. I just shut off. Battery turned on, started smoking and stuff, turned off.
Last summer, Southern California was battered by fires. This winter, it's floods. Scientists say extreme weather is being driven by climate change. And for this particular storm, the heaviest rains could be still to come. John Donnison, BBC News.
I'll show you live pictures coming to us right now from California. Just shows you the extent of the mud and debris that's really inundating neighbourhoods following the rain that they've seen there. This is Wrightwood in San Bernardino County. So pretty wet and miserable there still at the moment. Thousands of people have been attending Boxing Day trail hunts today. It could be the final time. The government will consult on its manifesto commitment to ban the activity in England and Wales in the new year. Trail hunting involves laying a trail using animal scent. It's already been banned in Scotland. Here's Fiona Trott.
A community coming together. Here in Tarporley, hundreds gather at the local pub for the Boxing Day hunt. It's what they've done for decades. Trail hunting involves hounds following an animal-based scent instead of a real animal. It's been legal since the hunting ban came into force in 2004. But campaigners say it's not effective because hounds could still chase and even kill foxes.
Well, the idea that these trail hunts are able to keep their dogs under control by a crack of the whip is just complete nonsense, because we've already had more than 264 reports of illegal hunting this season alone, and we're only partway through the season. So it's almost irrelevant whether they can or not, because they aren't doing it, and they're using trail hunting as a smokescreen to carry on hunting foxes illegally.
It's an issue which has always divided society and politics. Trail hunting is already banned in Scotland. Hunting with dogs is still legal in Northern Ireland.
For rural communities like this one in Cheshire, hunting has been a way of life for centuries. Some say trail hunting
is a workable compromise to protect the local economy too.
The government should focus on the economy and cost of living. The police should focus on rural burglaries, country lines and fly tipping, and not pursuing people conducting lawful trail hunting. We've got to stand up to these numpties running the country. They know nothing about our countryside.
The government says it's working out the best approach to take the ban forward and will run a consultation in the new year. Fiona Trott, BBC News, Cheshire.
Millions of people have been out taking advantage of the Boxing Day sales as shops reopen after Christmas. Analysts estimating that shoppers could spend more than £3.5 billion, both in stores and online, in the coming days. Clothes, shoes, accessories, all top of bargain hunters' wish lists. Here's our business correspondent, Mark Ashdown.
The Boxing Day sales are underway, still a major date in the retail calendar. For many, it's been another year of keeping a close eye on spending, but plenty of shoppers have been out and about across the UK, taking advantage of the deals on offer.
We just came now, actually, so we're going to head to maybe Boots and down there to look for some skincare, makeup.
We're actually waiting for this Boxing Day to come and get reductions.
I'm not much of a Boxing Day shopper, but just on a whim, we thought we'd come on the way to the cinema.
At work, we've got pretty much everyone that we can to be like on the shop floor to be able to cover the most amount of sales possible. So
people probably out later, but at the minute it's not as busy as I expect it to be.
Before Christmas everybody was rushing around, and now everybody's taking it at their own pace, and it's a more enjoyable experience shopping on Boxing Day, I think.
Every year kids come out to spend their Christmas money, and my wife likes to go to Lush. I'm just left carrying the bags.
Of course, more and more of us are doing our shopping online nowadays. And let's face it, it feels like retailers offer discount deals most of the year. But this period is crucial for the high street. Sales have been slow because of things like unseasonable weather and uncertainty around the budget, which means they've got plenty of stock to shift. So there are plenty of opportunities to grab a bargain in person. Data for today's footfall shows a slight increase in the number of people out and about compared with last year. There has been a small decrease in the numbers visiting both high streets and shopping centres, but the number of shoppers visiting retail parks has gone up this year. Over the festive period, some shops can take up to 40% of their annual revenue, but there is concern there are still plenty of reasons why people might think twice about spending.
Inflation is still higher than the government target, unemployment's high, people are nervous, and so they're going to be cautious, but they're going to use today, Boxing Day, as a real opportunity to get those bargains.
The Boxing Day buzz isn't quite what it used to be, and some shops even remain closed now to give staff a well-earned break. But the post-Christmas sales give retailers the chance to end the year on a high. Yeah, well, it's certainly busy here. We've been here all day. It was quite quiet early on, but it has built all day and lots of people out and about. People we spoke to saying they have been saving up, really, putting a bit of money aside and maybe putting off some of those Christmas purchases until today, coming out to take advantage of some of these pretty good Boxing Day deals. Now, the data on this is always very interesting. We get this snapshot of footfall, essentially how many people are out and about across the UK. We get it from a company called MRI Software, and they've just sent us the sort of very latest. What they do is compare last year to this year. So up until lunchtime, there was no change in the number of people who are out and about shopping today. But interestingly, a 2.2% drop in the number of people visiting high streets, a 3.5% drop in the number going to shopping centres, but an 8.2% rise in the number going to retail parks. So quite an interesting snapshot there of our shopping habits. Of course, online retailers continue to provide really fierce competition. And as I was saying there, it's been a really difficult, challenging year on the high streets especially. I think what retailers will be hoping now is this is the start of this sort of very busy, crucial final week of the year. There's a lot of engineering works out on the rail network today. That will no doubt hamper people getting out and about. So they'll be hoping as we get over the weekend, get into next week for that final week of shopping, they can entice more shoppers out.
And very briefly, Mark, when you've managed to speak to shoppers, what have they said to you about the uncertainty at the moment?
Well, I think reflecting really what we've been reporting this whole year, the weather hasn't played ball for the shops. Every time they want to get their spring wardrobe or the winter wardrobes out, the weather just seems to be unseasonably warm. And I think, so that uncertainty around the budget as well. People certainly, when they weren't sure what was really happening with that, were maybe putting off some of those spending decisions. So, as I say, retailers hoping Boxing Day, it's not quite what it was. The buzz isn't quite there, what it used to be many years ago, but they are hoping this will kickstart that post-Christmas sales period in this crucial final week of the year.
Now, many of you might recognise, I certainly do, it has a very particular reaction when I hear this music. Have a listen. Ooh, it's so ominous, isn't it? 50 years ago today that audiences heard that for the very first time when Jaws was released in cinemas across the country. The Steven Spielberg blockbuster went on to become one of the most iconic films of all time. Tim Moffat has more.
It's a beautiful day. The beaches are open. And people are having a wonderful time. I don't think you appreciate the gut reaction people have to these things.
Well, they do at the Video Odyssey video shop in Liverpool.
It's just such an atmospheric, brilliant film.
To mark the film's 50th anniversary, there's a special screening of Jaws.
It was the first time that audiences were queuing round the block, hence the name Blockbuster, to watch this movie. They were just that excited.
It's really a masterpiece in what you don't see on the screen really affects the viewer. And for that reason, I think it's a perfect film.
You yell shark, we've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Ali, why is this film, 50 years on, still such a classic?
It's difficult to overstate just what a massively humongous, towering achievement and pop culture phenomenon Jaws is. 50 years on, it's, to me, still as good as it ever was. It's still scary, it still has something to say. It's sort of got it all. Your superhero movies or your massive cinema-filling monster hits, they're trying to recreate the magic of Jaws, the merchandise, the word of mouth, the everything about it, where you wanted to have a T-shirt with Jaws on it, you wanted to read the book as well, you were telling your friends about it, you were quoting the movie.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Guys, we can't shoot right now, hold on.
But things could have been so different. There were huge problems during filming. Many felt its 27-year-old director had bitten off more than he could chew. Even he seemed to have his doubts.
No, it doesn't come easily. I don't even think about it. If I thought about multi-million-dollar pictures and all the equipment and all the responsibility, I'd probably go bananas. If I survive this, I'll have learned a lot. But because right now, all I can tell you is it's twice as slow shooting at sea as it is shooting on land.
Steven Spielberg, relatively unknown at the time, many people weren't sure whether he could actually pull this off.
Everything went wrong where it could go wrong at times. Over 100 days, late, over budget. He felt so much pressure, he was having panic attacks.
And there's only room in there for one quick line, expository line about the mate. The mate.
The mate is dead, we'll have to
Where's the body?
The antagonism between the actors, Shaw and Dreyfus, hated each other.
Hooper! Tie it up, will you? Your turn, Quinn. Hooper, where are you?
It is a miracle of a movie.
In Chatham, in Kent, rehearsals for what is believed to be the first ever Jaws pantomime.
We've tried to make this story very accessible. Obviously, it's a pantomime, so we want children to be able to enjoy it. So the worst horror you'll see is the acting.
Where is that shark? It's behind you! What?
There's a lot of tension in the original movie. It's not so much about the shark. It's about the waiting and not knowing what's happening. And we tried to bring a little bit of that in a fun and friendly and silly way in our pantomime.
Let's see who this terror of the seas really is.
The mayor of Tunbridge Wells!
It comes with its own
build up, its own feeling, its own emotions, and things like that are fantastic in a theatrical setting.
So you used fake sonar and a fake fish to trick us?
And I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids.
Yikes.
What specific type of shark does Matt Hooper identify the film shark as?
Back in Liverpool, as well as a screening, Jaws fans are enjoying a quiz.
Great white shark or D, tiger shark?
Jaws-themed Lego.
This is the iconic part towards the end of the movie where Chief Brody's thrown chum in the water and the shark pops up.
And reflecting on why they love this film so much.
It's a very human film. It's about people. There's a haunting undercurrent to everything, and it's just special to me.
Don't wait for me.
Many believe Jaws unfairly portrayed sharks as deadly killing machines, always seeking to attack humans. Shark hunting in America rose after the film's release, something Steven Spielberg has said he truly regrets. But as a piece of filmmaking, few would argue with the view that Jaws is a classic, set to keep movie lovers hooked for another 50 years.
I think the tide's with us. Keep kicking.
Tim Muffet, BBC News.
The movie and that music, of course. Do stay with us.